People keep talking about responsible AI, but can a set of algorithms really be unethical? The truth is that ethics must begin and end with human beings. We're the ones who design the algorithms. We're the ones who deploy and maintain them. It's time we started taking responsibility for the AI solutions we put in place. Learn more on this episode of Future Proof.
The future is here already. It's just not evenly distributed. Yet. Today's world teems with innovation. The nexus of hardware, software, and human ingenuity promises a revolution in possibilities. What does tomorrow look like? Witness Future Proof.
Yours truly, Eric Kavanaugh here, and I'm so excited to have two highly experienced professionals on the call today, ethics experts, I would call them, as a matter of fact. We're going to be talking to my buddy Andy Hanna from the University of Pittsburgh and his company Blue Street Data, which is doing really, really cool stuff. He's also the chair of the ethics board for AI at the University of Pittsburgh, so kind of important. And we also have Jessica Talisman calling in from Adobe, and she has got a whole history in understanding these topics as well. So we're going to dive in and talk about very serious stuff, which is AI ethics. Like, what is AI ethics? And I'm so annoyed by some of the stories I've been hearing these days. I pinged Anthropic to ask them about their curious studies where they're training them all Claude to blackmail as a last resort. And then it threatens to reveal in some test scenario, is what they say, that one of the developers is having an affair. I'm thinking, what on earth are these people talking about? First of all, I think these are just prompts. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it, but I think they're just putting prompts in and giving it within a context window and seeing what the engine says. I don't think it's actually an AI agent. And let's think about this. AI agents have agency, which means they can take decisions on their own and do things on their own. Well, let me tell you, blackmail is a felony, as is conspiracy to commit blackmail. So if you're training an AI agent to commit blackmail as a last resort, I think you've broken the law. I think we need to call the feds in and have a conversation with you guys. I mean, I'm watching this and thinking, what are you doing? Then there's a story today that a tool called Replete. I just saw the story today. Some guy published all this stuff on X, and he basically said, yeah, our AI agent through Replete dropped our database, just zapped the production database that we're working on, and then admitted, yes, it was a catastrophic error. I know I violated your rules and this and that. I'm like, what are you talking about? So these are some issues. Obviously, AI ethics scraping all this copyrighted material and then reflecting it back, making money off of that. Well, that's a bit of a problem. We're not haven't gotten to the bottom of that yet, too. So there are lots of things going on. But the one thing I'll end with, and this really annoys me, is that in one of these articles I'm reading, and I think it was about the Anthropic stuff, the one guy is saying, "Oh, well, in tense situations, the agent will make bad decisions." And I'm thinking, guys, there is no such thing as a tense situation for an algorithm. It's just processing code. So this desire to personify these agents, which I understand, give them names, Claude and Gemini and all this, I get that. They are not people. These are not people. Tension in a situation like that comes from things like fear of losing my job, fear of being arrested, fear of not being able to pay my bills or buy my family food. Like, that's where tension comes from, or difficult situations. There's no algorithm that suffers tension at all, ever, and that will never happen. So I'm just nervous about this intense personification and this hype around this stuff, what it's actually doing. What we're learning is that it is very good, these LLMs, as a research co-pilot. It's very good at writing prose, but it's just reflecting back patterns it's already seen based upon its training and your prompt. So it's good for that stuff, but putting it into production, be careful, man. Like, I don't know why you would allow an LLM to touch your production code and change your Git repository. That is a very, very bad idea. But with all that said, Andy Hanna, am I losing my mind, or is it just me?
No, but you're never losing your mind, Eric. I mean, it's such great questions. I mean, but I think you're at the central question right at the top of the hour, which is how do you classify an agent, right? An AI agent,
Right.
and it's certainly not human, but it is not software. And I think this is the interesting thing. It's somewhere in between
Mm.
because agents, AI, Gen AI, however you want to talk about it, learns, right? It learns from the information that it's fed. So it's not like it's a software program where you set it up and now it's processing data the way that you want it to. You're asking it to learn to do something, whether it's to make a decision or is it to, summarize information. It's constantly learning. So I think we need to treat it differently. And the way I often look at it is we have to hold AI agents to a certain standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have standard for humans. If you're in a meeting and somebody says something authoritatively, you don't just trust what they're saying. You say, "Oh, okay, let's verify that. Tell me why you think that." I think we need to have the same expectation from AI as a teammate because I think we need to think about it differently than the way we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it currently.
That's a really good point. I mean, so I see what you're saying. It's not just software, but I mean, it is software. It's software, but it's the agent itself. So there's this concept of BDI, and we'll bring Jessica in a minute to talk about it. And I see Nikolai is in the waiting room, so we'll bring him in at the next segment. But there's this concept of BDI, beliefs, desires, and intentions, which I think is pretty interesting. So you can see how an automaton, which is what this is, could have a set of beliefs that is encoded with sort of an opening set of beliefs like data quality should be 90% or higher, metrics, basically certain things that you want. So that's persistent data basically. And then desires is, or what do you want it to do? Intentions, how's it going to do that? That kind of makes some sense, and I can see how agents can be talking to each other. Oh, I did this, you do that. I kind of understand that stuff, but it's still software executing code with data, basically, right, Andy?
Well, yeah, it is software, it's algorithms, it's being fed data. But, humans, you learn what you learn because of the school that you went to, what your parents taught
Right,
you, whatever
right,
religion, whatever food you eat. So we are learning organisms.
right.
And so this is sort of a silicon-based learning organism. I think we need to think about these algorithms, these agents as an extension of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
as well as a teammate.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I think that the question that you had, if it's committing fraud, what do you do with it?
Right.
Right. So who do you hold responsible?
Right.
That's really, how do we discipline AI, Gen AI, agentic AI? I mean, these are the things that we struggle with, I think, as a society, not understanding yet. So I think we drive it down to the core, down to what is beneath the AI. What are the algorithms? What's the data science? What's the data? Is the data that's being fed into these programs, into these algorithms,
Right.
is it trustworthy?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they're feeding off of that data. You put bad things in people. You eat junk food your whole life, Eric.
Right. Right.
You're not going to look as fit and trim as you would do right now.
That's right. Well, I'm old enough to remember, and we'll bring Jessica in now. And like I said, Nikolai is in the waiting room. We'll bring in him for the next segment. But I'm old enough to remember Tay, Microsoft's little chat bot on Twitter that they just unleashed, and it started spewing racial epithets at people. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, let's pull this thing back." And
Mhm.
it's exactly what Annie just mentioned, right, Jessica? That these models, yes, they are learning models. That is true. They change, and it's not just like a database. I try to explain to people in a database, you put discrete data into certain places, and then you retrieve it later on exactly as you put it in. And that's the irony of this whole movement is that we spent 40 years or 50 years perfecting database technology, which is the foundation of all information systems, is the database. And now we threw this noise filter on the end of it, which is a stochastic or probabilistic engine that is not at all deterministic like the old way of doing things. So it's like, well, why would we do that? Because it's so powerful, because it does so many cool things. But Jessica, I'll throw it over to you to comment on all this.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about this is that we've had automation with AI since the 60s. This is
Right.
not
Right.
new. And
Right.
so we're treating this as a net new, we've all had spell check, we've all had predictive text in our lives for some time. Those are versions of the same.
Right.
And it is very much, the anthropomorphism of AI. So that's taking on the human characteristics where we can treat AI like our friend. There are two layers to this. So one is the black box that represents these AI models, where we have an idea from just research and deconstruction of what these AI models are trained on in terms of data and data sources. It's mostly publicly openly available information and knowledge. And there, to the point that you made earlier, there are some ethical issues with some of the training data and copywritten material.
Right.
So that's one pot to boil. And the other part of it is your internal organization. So your organization or your domain and the training data that then you present to that same AI model. A lot of the reasoning framework is based on policies and policy algorithms and models that we do not have access or insight,
Right.
right? And so there are decisions that are being made that we are not a part of
Right.
as humans, and that is a problem. So to Andy's point, if we are to be partners, research partners, or if AI is to be an extension of our learning and knowledge frameworks, then we need visibility into some of those policy and decision-making frameworks.
Right. Right. I mean, I could not possibly agree more with you. And I think that we've, I hate to say this, but we may need some sort of regulation around that and some
Mhm.
transparency into some of this stuff. I mean, you think about where we started to see legal concerns around bias in algorithms for banking, for example, for
Yep.
determining who gets a loan and who doesn't get a loan. You need explainability. I actually know the company Data Squared, they just tout this as it's amazing. The only patented explainable AI is by these guys, Data Squared. And they say all the same things that we're saying. It's like we need transparency into this thing. I mean, OpenAI is now closed AI, right, Jessica?
Absolutely. And that it goes against the entire principle of what we're being presented. And
Right.
the thing is, it's like a spider web.
Yeah.
And the
Ooh,
spider web is, recently OpenAI launched a consultancy arm
I
where they
saw
will go
that.
in and help stand up, workflows and
Right.
agents. And that's frightening because it's like embedding the vendor
Right.
into the domain gives a larger web of control and takes
Wow.
agency away from humans. And that
Wow.
is a scary proposition.
I saw that, by the way. I mean, I watch this stuff pretty closely, and I'll throw it back to Andy to comment on. And someone was saying, this is what they always do. They always say, oh, it's the software. And then what do? They ship the consultants in, to high-priced consultants to set it up for you. Well, I thought it was the software. Like, I've heard this with traditional enterprise software, like ERP systems. Like, oh,
It
yeah,
used
here's
to
the
happen with
software.
SEO and Google. That
Right.
was commonplace, where you would hire Google consultants to fix your SEO and search problems for large
Right.
enterprises, that you had to have the Google partner. And that still
Right.
exists to a large extent. And I know this is
Right.
getting into sort of a dicey area,
Right.
but it's not much different.
Right. And this is why you need transparency. And Andy, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how you unwind this stuff because you now have millions of layers. I mean, I postulated a few weeks ago that one of the ways these guys could make money is by renting out layers in their stack. So you
Mm.
could actually rent a layer in the deep learning module itself for ChatGPT. And there are certain rules of what you could do and not do, but just like seeing what comes and goes, just the telemetry would be kind of interesting, and you could bake in your rules or tendencies or whatever. I mean, there is this presumption, for example, with Google that, oh, it's organic search, almost like it's a free service provided by the ether. It's like, no, there's a for-profit company which has built these engines, and guess what? They've kind of become muscle bound because you go for searching for something, and what do you get? All these ad sponsors. I mean, just one pet peeve I'll throw at you. I've noticed that on these app stores, when you go, I want to buy the app Zoom, and you search for Zoom and hit enter, and the first one that shows up is like Microsoft meetings, whatever. I'm like, no, I want Zoom, and that's like second or third down. It's like, guys, come on, man. Like people are going to default to the top thing because you're just in a hurry doing stuff, and sometimes it's even similarly named, and like, oh, this isn't the app I wanted. Well, it's on your phone now. I don't know, Andy. How do you bake ethics into these practices in any meaningful way that has teeth?
Well, I mean, you made the point earlier, Eric, about are there going to be regulations or some type of laws related to that? And I think when there's danger involved in anything, in any type of business or service or whatever, regulation is not a bad thing.
Right.
And I think we need some self-regulation from the industry So, for example, there's right now I'm part of a technical committee for an organization called Oasis Open. And what we're setting is data standards around provenance. So, where did the data come from? Was it acquired ethically? Do they have the right to
Right.
sell it?
Right.
How close to first party data is it? These are
Right.
these are really fundamental sort of standards that can help change the outcome.
Yeah.
On the other side, I had the privilege of being with a number of insurance regulation people on Monday and talking about how do we understand what these third party software, AI agents are doing along with the third party data. How do we understand that, make sure that discriminatory activities aren't going forth,
Right.
that bias isn't involved. And so you have people at the right levels really starting to think about these things, but we're still early on. So we need to
Right.
combine these standards, regulations, people who care about protecting the individual, and that all has to happen in concert. We're just early.
Mm.
It's people think, yes, I agree, Jess. I mean, we've had AI since the 60s, like you said. I mean, absolutely. We should know better by now.
Right.
But we don't, because it just became available to everybody a few years ago. We
Right.
put a powerful tool in the hands of the average individual who has no idea what it means and how to really use it.
Right.
And so we're in a weird period of time where we got to bring these things together and really put some strong sort of guidance in place, guide rails.
Well, and you know what I just figured out, and because I always sit there, I think about things from different perspectives, and I think about it from the user perspective, from the designer perspective. I think about it from the business for-profit perspective because I run a business. It's not a nonprofit. Not that I make a lot of profit, but it's not a nonprofit. And I think about it from the regulator's perspective and how would regulators act? And usually, auditors and regulators they will check like advertising, for example. That's why a lot of doctors who do like stem cell therapy won't advertise that because they know even though it'll get them clients, it's more going to get them scrutiny from regulators who can probably shut them down. So it's like you got to watch out for these things. But I just realized in this call that regulators are going to get their own agents. Their own agents are going to be crawling around, right? So of course they are, like looking, knocking on doors. Oh, what's going on over here? What's going on over there? Looking for signatures of things. You think about how effective the Shazam algorithm is, and it's being used to catch people using copyrighted material. So it's like if you load a video that's got a music song from Taylor Swift, it's going to get shut down real quick because that's
Mm.
baked deep into the architecture. So the power is everywhere, and it's like, oh, we need transparency. All right, folks, back here with an all-star cast. Andy Hanna of University of Pittsburgh, Jessica Talisman of Adobe, and Nikolai Menchikov from Mensch AI has joined us. We'll bring him in just 1 second. But we're talking all about ethics and AI and wondering, scratching our heads, how are these crazy things happening? And yeah, I think that, frankly, a lot of it boils down to lack of education, understanding about how certain tools and technologies work. To Andy's point, this is very new stuff for most people. And when you work with an LLM, for example, you're amazed at how much it knows. But then people are starting to figure it out. Like a friend of mine posted yesterday, I just figured out all the hallucinations in a very real and compelling way because she asked about Ozzy Osbourne's death and it said, oh no, he's fine. Everything is good. It's just rumors. And I asked it a couple days ago about, I said, did the US really destroy Iran's nuclear program? It said, no, no, there are rumors about that, but everything is fine. I'm like, are you sure? Because I think that we attacked with B-2 bombers. It's like, oh, yes, this is what happened. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, that's not a small thing to get wrong. Like, did we blow this building up or not? Like, oh, no, it's just rumors. I'm like, I'm looking at a blown up building. And in the military world, by the way, they call that ground truth. So, ground truth is what's really happening. The report may come in that this village is not under attack, but there are bullets flying over your head. You're like, it is. I'm here and I hear the bullets. So that's ground truth. And Jessica, that's what we need from these things, right? So that's why you have RAG models, for example, and I like graph RAG because you need explainability and you have to ground these things to get the right answers, right? It's almost like dealing with
Right.
your teenager. I'm going to ground you if you don't tell me who knocked over the milk
Yes.
on the floor. What do you think, Jessica?
Well, in so many companies, there's a difference. I straddle the world of library science and
Hmm.
libraries and cultural institutions and corporate America.
Right.
And the problem is in corporate America, we're very much stuck in data architectures, and data
Mm.
is the ground truth, and that can be very syntactic.
Mm.
And in fact, something that library science brings to us is knowledge infrastructures, which are these dynamic sort of knowledge graph-based architectures that
Right.
take it a step further beyond just data, that we have information that and knowledge, and that there's some recency and truth. Just as an example, I was curious about news cycles and how AI might interpret those news cycles in terms of ethics and reliability from a data perspective, and created a little workflow and daily updates for daily news updates, and just to
Hmm.
see what AI would serve to me.
Right.
And a lot of it really wasn't recent relative or something, particularly reliable. We're seeing this division where, because the education part of AI has fallen behind, we end up with a very polarized understanding of AI, either that it's very
Hmm.
good and it's going to
Right.
cure all diseases, or
Good
it's
point.
very bad
Right.
and it's going to kill humanity. And
Right.
there's no real middle ground. And part of that really has to do with education. Things like, are we integrating AI into educational institutions? Andy, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. Too soon? And have our frameworks for education kept up,
Hmm.
so that we can have a more educated population with an understanding of what the capacity of these tools are and where critical thinking or media literacy is needed.
You just threw in the magic two words that I was going to throw out. Critical thinking. That's what you're supposed to learn in school, is how to learn, is how to dissect information, distill information, understand a corpus of information. There are bodies of work, for example, you want to examine. Those are all excellent, excellent points. And I actually want to talk to you more about the library science stuff either later in the show or offline, because I think it's an imperative part of the picture that is overlooked right now. And so I'll throw it over to Nikolai to tell us a bit about what he's doing. But I'll just throw out there, syntax, language, words. You figure Google built an empire on keywords. That's it.
Mhm.
Their keywords were their empire. So you'd buy AdWords, you'd search for keywords, it would give you results. I mean, they've done all sorts of great work to fine tune that, but it's just words and text. Language is just a very thin layer of abstraction that ostensibly represents the real world, but it's very thin. It's very, very small, and it can be misinterpreted. There are all kinds of things that can happen to it.
Language is very political.
It's also political, right? Even
Sure.
the terms that you use, like, not to go down a wormhole, but like conservative versus progressive. What the hell does that mean? I would say it means almost nothing these days, especially when they all flip sides. But anyway, Nikolai, I'll bring you in. Nikolai Minchikov. I tell
Yeah.
stories about you all the time. I say, my buddy
Okay. Yeah,
Nikolai.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how I think. You see, with that accent. Yeah,
That's
we
funny.
actually have an opposite challenge, and that's
Okay.
what I will introduce you to a different side of that.
Oh,
So
please.
now I'm from advertising world. Yeah, so we were excited when we built an ad that is designed to talk back and execute tasks. So it's not something you just see, but you can interact and expect that you interact essentially with the product, the service, whatever object becoming alive.
Hmm.
And of course, no, it comes with a lot of benefits for advertisers, but also it makes it almost like a social kind of network aspect when people communicate not only with people, but with objects, yes, that surround us. And I was so excited. I sent. It's also very mobile, so you can actually. It's very easy to put on any website, and that makes it very easy because there is nothing technical about that. The whole this thing, to make it, we had to come up with a model that is different from ChatGPT, because uh, how we see that, and that's how people see AI these days, that is something very smart. So you can compare that to like what we know as a book smart, like professors, for example. Yes, someone that knows everything about everything and can help with research in many different, is essentially part of our life. But how smart the ad should be. And the problem with this book smart thing It's all great, this AI agent, as people know them, but it's very expensive. It takes a lot of time. No, you know, it costs a lot of money to make something very effective in terms of, like book smart kind of criteria. There's another type of smartness that we know is a streetwise. And the streetwise smart people, we know it, they learn, they might not never read a single book, but they actually equally smart in their domain, usually that evolves through interactions. So they essentially emerge through interactions and through the social interaction with the society. Essentially, as we know, the kind of this example, for example, if you saw this movie, analyze that, analyze this, analyze that, you have a gangster that is streetwise, and you have a professor that is PhD professor. And the irony is, at the end of the movie, we realize that they are equally smart. They just exist in different domains. So that we developed this model that is based on that idea that is designed to learn through interactions rather than a lot of information. That makes it very affordable and fast and light and thing, but not this kind of, would call it dumb AI. Yes, it's not really smart at all. Like if you compare it to the domain of the book smart criteria. So we got excited that we made it. It's actually very interesting. And I made a call to my friend, and so we made this exciting cat that can talk back and execute on tasks. And the first question my friend asked, can it do porn? And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of that. So I started thinking, okay, so who we protect actually ethically now? So I didn't even know what to answer because I had no idea. Because with our model, it's not trained model. Yes, we call it not trained. Because instead of training here, what is happening technically, so you understand, it has access to, through APIs and all sort of like basically setting, it has information specific to that product or services or whatever it is object in real time. So for every interaction, whatever people ask, that it has very fast access to whatever it's related to. So it's kind of learning through that moment. It doesn't remember that fast, of course, it's not the goal. Maybe eventually it will. And it's actually getting the progressing, the cognitive progress is actually, based on our data, at least shows it's actually smarter than the books in some ways than book smart, like AI progress. But regardless, so what we realized that we have to deal, because of that nature, that it talks to many, many different people, and they can ask whatever they can ask, but that is not like kind of ChatGPT is one for everyone. Yes, this thing is specific to that specific like business. It may be local business, yes, like restaurant or dentist or like real estate. And if people start asking such things, it may result is essentially abusing AI.